COVID cluster, hundreds are evacuated from a quarantine hotel, with tests so far showing 8 people positive. Referendum fatigue? We ask whether there is such a thing as too much democracy as Taiwan heads for another public poll. Smokescreen? Taiwanese are set to vote on reimposing a ban on pork imports containing a food additive. But is this referendum really about food safety? And Field of Dreams, a chance for Taiwan's young indigenous players to realize their ambitions of becoming professional baseball players. A warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Yin Khvat. Health officials are testing more people related to a cluster infection at a quarantine hotel in northern Taiwan. So far, 8 people have tested positive, 7 of them confirmed with the same Delta variant. Authorities say 6 are domestic cases. Our reporter Sandy Chi has the details.
People wearing protective gear are lining up to hop on a bus in a rush to leave their quarantine hotel earlier than planned. On Thursday afternoon, a hotel in Taiwan became the site of the latest COVID-19 cluster when several people tested positive. The hotel was closed for disinfection and 129 people were sent to government quarantine facilities. The health minister says they are investigating whether the virus spread through the air.
那至于在里面判定是环境的可能性比较大，那根据2个理由，一个是在员工他就全部的 PCR 是阴性。 然后第二个全部的来的这6间里面的人，事实上都是从不同的地方来的。
Although the patients checked into the hotel at different times, their stays overlapped and several of the cases were staying on the same floor. The CECC plans to review surveillance footage to fully investigate whether there was any inappropriate contact between the guests. Since the outbreak earlier this year, this is the 3rd hotel with the cluster infection. Aznaya Zhou and Sandy Chi for TaiwanPlus.
With less than 24 hours until polls open in Taiwan for 4 referendums, both camps are making a final push for votes to win over undecided voters. They'll be weighing in on issues from pork imports to nuclear power to the future of an ancient algal reef. There's even a referendum on when to hold referendums. Chairman of the opposition Kuomintang, Eric Chu, spent the day campaigning for 4 yes votes in southern Taiwan. Vice President William Lai, meanwhile, released a video urging supporters of the ruling Democratic Progressive Party to cast 4 no votes. With the referendums increasingly becoming a battle between opposing political camps, experts have called on the public to make their decisions based on the facts and not on political affiliations.
公投呢是选政策，公民团体最重要的概念是什么？黑不是附水组织啦，不是来帮某个政党背书，但听的是台湾啦，咱听的不是什么进动。
As the referendum debates heat up and Taiwan's electorate make final decisions on the complicated issues, some experts are warning of voter fatigue. Our reporter Rick Glauert asks if there's such a thing as too much democracy.
In just 3 years, Taiwanese people have voted in presidential, legislative and local elections. They've even voted to recall politicians and in 10 referendums. With more polls around the corner, some citizens are growing weary of Taiwan's constant voting.
我觉得会麻烦，如果每年都有这么多公投的话，就蛮麻烦的，对。
So people have to think so many topics in one day. So I think, yeah, that's like overwhelming for citizens.
Still, local polls say as many as 75% of eligible voters may come out to vote on Saturday to cast their ballot.
Taiwan has one of the freest democracies in Asia. Its politics is often described as enthusiastic, raucous, or even freewheeling. But this latest round of referendums, bringing the total to 14 in just over 3 years, has raised questions about how the relationship between people and politics should work.
Taiwanese politicians are known for passionate and at times even violent debates inside the legislature. This year, yes-no votes on the 4 issues, pork imports, nuclear energy, saving an algal reef, and even the frequency of referendums fall strictly down party lines. But Taiwan's two major parties have swapped sides on some of these issues over the last few years.
So in a sense, these issues on the ballot are not that important. Both parties use this opportunity to prepare for the next general election.
Both the ruling Democratic Progressive Party, or the DPP, and the opposition Kuomintang, or the KMT, have been frantically campaigning across the country in the last few weeks.
在野党有在野党的天职，我们必须要跟人民站在一起，尤其是面对这么二把的民进党，我们必须要跟人民站在一起。
And what do the DPP think? At a last-minute rally, the party's Deputy Secretary-General said the KMT is using the referendums as a tool to challenge the ruling party, making these votes too much about party politics.
Initially, that we hope that the referendum should be a process that people can decide the national policy. But the reality is that when the KMT rolls these agendas, those issues, then sadly we found that the nature of politics will change the whole referendum process.
Both experts and politicians say Taiwan, a young democracy finding its feet, still needs to perfect its public votes. But these referendums, along with all their theatrics, are in stark contrast to authoritarian China next door, which constantly threatens to invade democratic Taiwan.
We are not necessarily being a model or example for other countries, but our very success will prove that democracy will reign, and dictatorship should not be the form of human beings.
For many people in Taiwan, unable to ignore the threat from across the water, they would still rather repeatedly head to the polls and have too much democracy than to have none at all. Damon Lin and Rick Lowett for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan is one of the world's highest consumers of pork per capita. This weekend, voters will decide whether to reinstate a ban on pork imports treated with the additive Ractopamine. Opponents of Ractopamine express concern about its safety, but Taiwan's governing party says it will bring the country in line with international food safety standards. James Chaser reports.
Lawmakers wrestle each other to the ground in Taiwan's legislature late last year. But what was all the fuss about? Well, this. Pork. The brawl came after a decision by Taiwan's President Taoyuan in August last year to allow the import of pork treated with an additive called Ractopamine. Ractopamine enhances the leanness of animals and is widely used in the US. But due to food safety concerns, it is banned in China and the European Union. On Saturday, voters in Taiwan will decide whether they want to overturn Tai's decision and implement a ban on pork products treated with the additive. It's a hot-button issue in Taiwan, where sensitivity to food safety is high.
It triggers much emotion, right? Fear, anger, sort of the desire to be healthy and also to protect our own families.
Taiwan's ruling Democratic Progressive Party, or DPP, argues that safety concerns over pork containing Ractopamine are exaggerated. They say that allowing the import simply aligns Taiwan with international food and trading standards. But the opposition Kuomintang, or KMT, says that Ractopamine can impact the health of certain groups, like pregnant women or children. They also argue that cheaper pork from overseas will undercut local producers. Around 90% of pork consumed in Taiwan is reared domestically.
在欧盟的部分，他们也没有开放这个东西进口，所以我觉得我们应该要再有更多的研究和讨论，才能够决定是不是要开放。那目前我觉得我们的做法是太过草率了一些这样。
This is not the first time Ractopamine has sent temperatures soaring in Taiwan. In 2012, farmers threw eggs at Taiwan's agricultural ministry after the KMT, who were then in power, said they would permit imports of beef treated with Ractopamine. And that flip-flopping by the KMT and the DPP leads many to think the issue of ractopamine is more about politics than pork. Taiwan's main political parties have traded places on the issue of ractopamine in meat products, and analysts say it's a clear indication of just how politicized the additive has become here. But this vote is not just about pig guts on the floor of Taiwan's parliament. There are concerns that if the ban on ractopamine-treated pork is passed, it could have a major impact on Taiwan's trading relationship with its most important partner, the United States. Taiwanese American organizations have rallied in the run-up to the vote, calling on Taiwan to allow the imports. They say that if the ban passes, it could jeopardize TIFA, a trade agreement between the US and Taiwan, which has been mired by stops and starts.
好不容易 TIFA 可以开始重新再议，好不容易我们可以参加 CPTPP 这样子的一个让台湾可以进入国际舞台，一个让台湾的贸易可以重启贸易自由，能够在真的是说摆脱中国威胁的情况下，这种良机，这种对台湾未来的贸易前途的发展，阮台湾人感觉非常非常的重要。
That's a position supported by the DPP, which has run a campaign suggesting a ban on pork containing ractopamine is tantamount to a ban on all US pork. They also say that if the vote passes, Taiwan could endanger its entry into trade organizations like the CPTPP. The opposition KMT argues that's disingenuous because the US is not a member of the CPTPP, and the vote is simply about banning the additive, not all US pork. Regardless, researchers say that because the pork issue has an impact on US-Taiwan trade, that makes the question particularly susceptible to influence from China. One Taiwan-based NGO called IORG has been combing the internet for the most prevalent disinformation on the upcoming referendums.
That is saying that we pick out narratives that have CCP participation and look into them, sort of put them higher on the priority list to look at. So that's what we did, and that's how we found 10 narratives that has evidence of CCP participation, and 9 of them is about the ractopamine pork.
And voters in Taiwan really care about pork. It's not only the most popular type of meat consumed here by far, but Taiwan is one of the highest per capita consumers of pork in the world. And because of that, people on both sides of the issue are hoping this referendum won't leave a sour taste in their mouth. Klein Wang and James Chater for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan's government has launched an investigation into alleged price gouging in the food industry after a number of major restaurant chains announced a rise in prices. A task force is set to conduct inspections from next week, starting with some of the most well-known restaurants. Businesses will have to provide the reasons for the price changes and information about their suppliers. Investigators will review if the increased costs are justifiable. Coming up, we take you to day 2 of the Care Cup tournament in Hualien, where young indigenous baseball players are battling for the championship trophy. More after the break.
Today, 今天台湾人要了解的是，我们跟这片土地关系里面，它是跟你的生命的根源息息相关。像这个洪焕、扁伯等等，他们都是台湾的神明。长期以来，我一直误以为我在抢救山林，直到最近10年来， 我才了解，我从来没有抢救山林，而是山林从来在抢救我们。我们的地球46亿年来，我们就是它的一部分，它就是我们共同的灵魂，流传在我的血液中，也流动在树叶当中。
这是我们台湾人要送给台湾的礼物。
我们都清楚，我们都在一起，在完成一件事情。
这是我们的根。
Thanks for watching TaiwanPlus. For more great stories from Taiwan and around the world, download the TaiwanPlus app.
Welcome back. You're watching Taiwan Plus News. A reminder of our top stories. Health officials are testing more people related to a cluster infection at a quarantine hotel in northern Taiwan. And Taiwan's electorate and political parties are gearing up for Saturday's referendums, where people will be voting on 4 key issues. One of them is whether the 4th nuclear power plant should be unsealed and put into use. Taipei-based energy expert Hao Falls used to train and supervise operations on a nuclear plant in Taiwan. He now has moved to the renewable energy industry. He spoke to our reporter about Taiwan's energy ambitions and the safety concerns around the 4th nuclear power plant.
Number 4 is what they call an advanced boiling water reactor. An advanced because of the fact that it has advanced safety features on it. It is said that if there was a major accident to occur at either the reactors number 4, the best thing that the operators could do for the first 30 minutes, and obviously they're highly trained to take emergency procedure steps once an accident happens, but these things are designed that within the first 30 minutes, the only thing that an operator really needs to do is stand back and watch all the safety equipment turn on and take care of the problem. After everything turns on and after everything starts cooling down and going into position, then the operators would start taking action to shut off certain aspects, to cool down the steam system, to start cooling down the reactor itself. But safety-wise, it will take care of itself. It is advanced. It is not the same as number 1 and number 2. And that's why they built this type, is for advanced consideration of safety.
How important is nuclear energy for Taiwan's future energy needs?
If they want to shut down the reactors, what are you going to replace it with? The current administration says, well, we should be doing renewables, wind and solar. Solar is great during the day, but we still need electricity at night. And wind is fabulous. And because, for the last 12 years, I've operated a wind farm in Taiwan, and it's fabulous. It's great for the environment. But as a secured load for Taiwan that we need, each one of these reactor sites is about 2,000 megawatts of power. Each one of the wind generators out in the sea is 6 megawatts apiece. So how many wind turbines do we need operating full time to replace 2,000 megawatts? You divide that by 6 and you've got a really big number, and that's at 100% power from the wind. And as far as coal is concerned, take a trip down to Taichung in the Taichung area, anytime, any day, and there's a constant haze down there.
We're covering the referendum topics extensively with analysis in the run-up to the vote, here and on our website. TaiwanPlus reporter Louise Watt travelled to the site of the fourth nuclear power plant, while Ryan Ho Kilpatrick went to Taoyuan to find out how people living near the Datan algal reef feel about plans for a liquefied natural gas terminal in their backyard.
The construction of this LNG receiving terminal over the Datan algal reef in Taoyuan has become one of the most contentious issues in the country. And this weekend, it goes to national referendum.
And now for a look at some of the stories making the headlines around the world.
For a second day, the UK has reported a record number of daily COVID-19 infections fueled by the Omicron variant. Nearly 89,000 people tested positive on Thursday in the UK, around 10,000 more than the previous day's record. The surge prompted the English Premier League to cancel more football fixtures, while the Queen called off a traditional pre-Christmas lunch with the royal family. From Saturday, France will impose a ban on UK travellers that don't have a compelling reason to enter the country. The surge coincides with a daily record for vaccinations, most of which were booster shots, which are considered the best protection against a severe Omicron infection. Typhoon Rai has brought heavy rain and flooding to the central Philippines, killing at least one person. More than 300,000 people have had to leave their homes because of the typhoon. There have also been flight cancellations and power outages. Rai was a super typhoon when it made landfall on Thursday, one of the strongest this year with maximum sustained winds of 195 kilometers an hour. On Friday, winds had eased to 155 kilometers an hour. A town in Australia is in mourning following a tragic accident that killed 5 children at a year-end party at a primary school. Flowers, toys and candles have been left outside the school in Devonport in the state of Tasmania. 3 children remain in critical condition following the accident, which saw children fall from as high as 10 meters when a bouncy castle was blown into the air by a gust of wind. Police are investigating whether the castle was properly secured to the ground.
At least 19 people have died in a building fire in the Japanese city of Osaka. The blaze broke out on the 4th floor of an 8-story building in the city's commercial district. Police are investigating the fire as suspected arson. The building is located in a busy commercial and entertainment district and housed in a medical and psychiatric clinic. The US Congress has passed a bill requiring companies to prove that goods imported from China's Xinjiang region were made not using forced labor or slavery. President Biden has indicated his support for the bill and is expected to sign it into law. Companies, including Coca-Cola and Nike, had lobbied against the bill. They said its requirements were too onerous and would impact supply chains. Xinjiang has become a major point of tension between China and Western countries. The Senate also approved Nicholas Burns as the next U.S. ambassador to China. Burns is a long-time U.S. diplomat and previously served as the U.S. ambassador to NATO. The UN Weather Agency has certified the highest temperature ever recorded in the Arctic Circle. The town of Verkhoyansk in Russia's Far East region had a reading of 38 degrees Celsius in June last year. Arctic Siberia experienced a prolonged heat wave in 2020, one of the 3 hottest years on record. Temperatures were up to 10 degrees Celsius higher than usual in a region which is warming at double the global average. There may also be a new record high in California, which saw devastating wildfires last year.
We're currently seeking to verify temperature readings of 54.4 degrees Celsius. That was recorded both in 2020, but also again the same temperature in 2021 in Death Valley, California, which holds the record of being the world's hottest place. So temperatures like that in Death Valley, we anticipate temperatures of 38 degrees Celsius in the Arctic, really do indicate that something is badly wrong with our climate.
As the referendum battle heats up in Taiwan, another keenly contested competition is happening in Hualien. Bing Wang takes us to day 2 of the annual Care Cup baseball tournament.
Welcome to day 2 of the Care Cup tournament, where more baseball is on the way. Now, forecasts say it might rain a little bit later, but that's okay because rain or shine, these kids are ready for baseball.
The teams are made up of young indigenous Taiwanese players from all across Taiwan. But the big problem of the Care Cup is trying to fix is access. Access to good baseball equipment, access to well-kept baseball fields, and even access to some good quality baseball education. At the opening ceremonies, the Taiwan Indigenous Baseball Development Association, also the organizers of the Care Cup tournament, launched a plan to raise scholarships and send resources to Hualien and Taiwan areas so young players can receive good quality education. And this year was the first year that they've awarded scholarships. The opening ceremonies was also full of excitement. We got to see various different indigenous Taiwanese customs and culture. We even had performances by some of the schools.
Now this year's dream is Kuzbaya, or letting your dreams fly. And I talked to a lot of young baseball players at this tournament, and a lot of them say they want to become professional baseball players in the future. And I think that might come true. We might have seen the next big household name at this tournament.
Thanks for watching Taiwan Plus News. I'm Yin Khvat. We'll leave you with images of monkeys in London Zoo finding their Christmas stockings filled with festive treats. For more stories from Taiwan and around the world, please download the Taiwan Plus app. Stay safe and see you next time.